Hi, son. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm studying for Professor Rosetter's final exam. Looks difficult.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for the bus stand, but I don't know where it is. Actually, I want to go to the North State bus stand.
Oh,
Do you know where it is?
yeah. You just go out, you go down the elevator, you just go down the escalator, go through the atrium, past the big red thing, and go up the hill, past the guard shack, and there it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get it.
Oh, maybe I was too fast.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Actually, I have one application. This application.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can record your voice, your sound, and then I can remember it. I can slow it down.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
So
Well, let's try. Yeah. Sure. Go out elevator 25, 26, go down to the first floor, go down the escalator, walk through the atrium, past the big red Phoenix, go up the hill past the guard shack, and there's the bus station.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone, this is our application. So as you see, this is the first activity. So 1 minute ago, I record the sound. Yeah, and we have these two buttons. We don't use it now. We can play it. Yeah, and now let's look at the second activity. So we want to slow down the sound so we can listen it again more clear. So we can choose to play 15% slower. Okay, next time we'll introduce you the more details about our application.
Okay, so our application was called Adjusting Audio with Android, and we had three different objectives, or four objectives that we're going to talk about today: the goals of our project, how we did it, some problems that we encountered, then we'll show some more demonstrations. The first three goals, the goals of our project, we had three of them. One was to provide a tool for learning a language so that you could learn this, use this if you wanted to learn English or learn Chinese or a dialect. And we slow down the audio, and that's how we would help the student learn. The second one is we want to try to be able to help people with communication problems, cerebral palsy, for instance, or stuttering. And the third one is we want to do all this in the framework of an Android application. So how we did it, we had two key components of Android we worked with. One was called the Media Recorder API, and one's the Sound Pool API, and we'll show you how those work. Media Recorder API is used to record 3GPP and MP4 type sounds. Now, maybe you've never heard of 3GPP, but it's used for audio with 3G phones and also works with 4G phones. So it was designed specifically for cell phones. And so we see some of the sample code. We have a specified output file, and this is basically the location of where the output file will be written. And here we see an external storage directory, which is your SD card, and then the name of the file, that gives us our path. Then what we're going to do is create a new instance of Media Recorder called My Recorder, and then we're going to use My Recorder, and we're going to specify three different lines of parameters. One is MIC, that we're going to use a mic. The next, we specify the format 3_GPP. It could be MP4, but in our case, we're just using audio 3GPP. The next thing is that we do is we have to specify what kind of audio codec we're going to use. And this AMR_NB is specifically used for speech coding. So that's how we do it. Record and it writes it. We run the My Recorder, run the code, and it writes it to the output file and creates a file called record.3GPP. Okay. The next component is Sound Pool, which is part of Android. And with Android development, we use the Sound Pool, and it's used a lot with games. And so like a game is usually used for a short sound, like a gunshot, pop, and then you can repeat it many times, pow, 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 or you could actually slow it down depending on the game. So we have an example of the code here where we have a sound ID, and then we have a different volume, left and right channel on the volume, and then a priority, and then we have the 0.5, which means we're going to slow it down by 50%. Here's an example where we increase by 1.35 or 35%. Okay. And this is more about the sound pool parameters. The range, like I said, we can do a left and right volume. Priority, we can have more than one sound. So in sound pool, we could have several sounds in the pool, and we could choose them or have them organized in certain priority, like we might want one sound to play before another one happens. And then the playback that's what we use for slowing down. So we can either cut it in half, 50%, or we can double the sound. And there's our sound ID that points to our file. Okay. So some problems we had a lot of problems with Android emulator. We developed in Android Studio and Eclipse. And Eclipse and the Android Studio, they have emulators where you can emulate different kinds of phones, from a Galaxy to a Samsung to tablets. And we had difficulty sometimes getting the emulator to work exactly like it was supposed to, especially when we tried to write to the SD card of the emulator. So we ended up focusing just using a real phone. It made things a lot easier. This took a lot of hours trying to figure this out. Very, very frustrating. But the second thing is we had the menus that we use were written in XML. And so that was interesting, trying to work out and trying to solve where the problem was in the XML file. There's two main XML files that we deal with. Sometimes the error message is at a different place than the error is. Okay. Okay, we're going to show you an example now, like recording somebody going very fast speaking. Okay.
Okay, units, travel plans. I need to be in New York on Monday, LA on Tuesday, New York on Wednesday, LA on Thursday, New York on Friday. Got it? Got it. So you want to work here? What really makes you think you deserve a job?
Well, sir, I think I'll like it. I'm going to finish. I have a sharp mind.
Excellent. Can you start on Monday?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Without hesitation.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, so this guy is obviously speaking very quickly, so we can actually slow his speech down so we can understand what he's saying. So Tom, what do you want to slow that down to?
Okay, how about we can play 25% slower?
25%, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can understand him by slowing it down. So this could be a way, if there's some audio that was very fast and you wanted to find out what they were saying, or, like for me, I can understand most of that English, but if you're a non-English speaker, maybe you want to slow it down so you can understand the English. Okay. Another one is tongue twisters, right? I know, Tom, you said you used tongue twisters to learn English when you were in elementary school, primary. So this guy's, a British guy's going to give us this tongue twister in English, and we're going to try to slow it down to learn it. Okay.
Betty Botter had some butter, but she said this butter's bitter. If I baked this bit of butter, it would make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter, that would make my batter better. So she bought a bit of butter better than her bitter butter, and she baked it in her batter. And the batter was not bitter, so it was better, Betty.
Okay, so what are we going to play that back?
We can play 10% slower.
10% slower.
Yes.
So that would be a way to play a tongue twister back, right? It's much easier to understand at a slower speed. Okay. So this is for language learning, so our application. The next thing is trying to help people with speech problems. Cerebral palsy is a disease that affects usually children. Their brain can be denied oxygen at a certain time, and it can cause some damage. And these people, at different levels of cerebral palsy someone can have, but a lot of times they're very intelligent, but it's difficult for them to communicate. So we were hoping we could help them in some way. So let's try this one.
I'm born with cerebral palsy, which
Okay. So like in her case, what would you want to do with that one, Tom?
Yeah, we want to make her voice more fast.
So
we can play 10% faster.
So we'll see if we can understand her more easily.
I'm born with cerebral palsy, which
Okay. So maybe the advantage of that was if it would make the audio shorter. Okay. Let's look at another one example of someone stuttering, which is another problem that many young people have, and it's difficult to, scientists haven't been able to figure out what causes it.
That just felt really great. Because
Okay, so what would you do with that one, Tom?
This time we decided to play 40% faster.
Okay. Okay, that was too fast, right? So one thing that we ran into is, with the speech problems is that, you know, of course, if we increase the speed too much or slow it down, it really changes the person's voice. Okay. So in summary, well, we developed an application. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So in the summary, it is obviously in this application, the second activity, we have two functions. One is slower, one is making it faster. But there's one problem. Our disadvantage is play 25% slower and play 70% faster. It's not that sounds very good. Yeah. And so my suggestion, if you want to use this application, you can play 15% slower or play 40% faster. So this is better. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your attention.
Well, yeah, and one thing too with it we learned, we really don't think we can really help people with speech problems, right? With this simple application, but unless it's something that could actually help them playing their voice back. Okay, thank you.